Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Eric, I have a stutter, and I say stupid I've seen a couple of comments in my past videos from a few of you guys asking me to talk about The Idol. Now, if you don't know what The Idol is, it's this series by Sam Levinson, the creator of Euphoria, and it basically got really, really bad reviews. It was a mess in production to begin with, and it really showed us what Sam had been teasing us about for a while now. I didn't want to just jump into The Idol without some sort of context into his career. I think I've cracked the code, sort of, but I'm not sure. Before Euphoria and The Idol, he wrote and directed Assassination Nation. Assassination Nation came out in 2018, and it's touted as a modern adaptation of the Salem witch trials in a digital age. It follows a group of 4 teenagers who live in the city of Salem, if it wasn't obvious enough, as half the town get their private information hacked and released to the public, along with all of their dirty, dark secrets. And when one of these 4 teenagers is blamed for the hack, the group must survive a night when everyone in town wants to see them dead. In theory, it sounds pretty great, right? The first time I watched this movie, I hadn't seen Euphoria or The Idol yet, so my understanding of Sam Levinson was very close to nothing. I didn't know much about this guy. I watched the movie very haphazardly. I didn't really get into it. I remembered the plot, sort of. And yeah, I just wrote it off as like an action thriller that existed. Then I watched Euphoria, and yes, I've also put myself through watching The Idol. And I saw quite a jump in the way he portrays these topics from Euphoria to The Idol. Now, if you're not familiar with his work, I don't know where you've been living, but he's known for portraying very explicit, raw, realistic, teenagers, basically, young adults struggling with substance abuse, alcohol. They're very sexual in nature. It's very violent. After watching Euphoria and The Idol, I went back to the movie and I saw some signs that he was telling us that it was all going to go downhill, because Assassination Nation, I would say, is the most acceptable of the 3. It's the one that tries the hardest to be what it claims to be. And at the time, it was well received by a large part of audiences because they said it was needed, it was relevant. You know, it talks about cancel culture, mob mentality, the consequences of creating values you can't uphold, all while exposing the biggest transgressions of our society in an action-packed way. And though I do agree that the topics are indeed needed and relevant, I don't think that's what Sam is doing. I don't think he's doing any of them justice by cramming this movie with so many trigger warnings that you're left unsure of whether he's mocking triggers or he's honoring them in a stylish, cool way. For context, in the first 3 minutes of the film, we get a list of trigger warnings delivered to us in a flashy, almost like blink it and you'll miss it kind of way. And that's the first sign that the movie is trying way too hard. You know, it's delivered in such a self-aggrandizing way, because by the end of the movie, nothing of value was really said about any of these topics. He touches on a bunch of them, but doesn't really do anything with it. He's just a casual observer of evil, and then he puts it on screen with a very misogynistic perspective that tells us all he kind of wants is to see women suffer. But he masquerades it as female empowerment because then he depicts hard-hitting truths of the society he lives in. He's raw and realistic when actually he's not. He's just exploiting it for his own gain. He creates this very convoluted story full of gaping plot holes where all the characters and plot devices serve for him to air out, I guess, his philosophies and his social commentary. I swear to God, he inserts characters that do nothing for the story other than be his walking mouthpieces for takes on,
like, what's the motive behind 300 plus mass shootings every year? There is none. People just burn out, want to take down their little universe.
Like, what? And you'd think that he'd want to make a statement out of any of these issues. He'd want to make one of them the central point of the story. But in the end, the meaning of the entire movie is that people are just evil. People are just bad. There's no reason why we're bad. We just are. And that sounds like a very privileged thing to say. And by the end, I was genuinely unsure of what kind of statement he was putting out, because it ends in this, like, spoiler alert, if you were fucking interested in not having this story spoiled, but it ends in a sort of a powerful monologue delivered by a female character, and it comes across as almost like a feminist manifesto, a call to action, a call to arms. But in the same breath, she's also telling the incels that if they don't agree with the system they've created, essentially the patriarchy, then they should abolish it and stop pretending. And I'm like, stop pretending what? Stop pretending to be decent people? Is she telling all men to act out their most violent fantasies with no shame? It's unclear. And I'm not sure if he did that on purpose, because then he could argue either point, or if he's genuinely not intelligent enough to understand how it could have come across ambiguous to the point of people could question. Considering the movie that we just watched, it's like, what was he trying to say? Like, it was not 100% clear, or at least not as clear as he may think it was, because he's very proud of his work. When The Idol came out and his wife read a really negative review on an article, his response was, I think we might have the biggest show of the year in our hands. It was the biggest something, but it wasn't show. It was a big fat piece of turd. and then instead of doing something of value with any of these topics that he inserts himself into, no, he just goes for the low-hanging fruit of shock value, which is lots of sex, lots of violence, lots of like anarchist type behavior, like let's destroy things. Is that what an anarchist does? I don't know. He seems to love characters that are very radical against the system, let's burn it all down, in the same breath as he's almost like glorifying the acts of people in that system that he so much wants to abolish. It's like he's both the oppressor and the victim at the same time. So he lives as the oppressor, but then he also creates the victims, so then he can have them interact with each other and profit off of that. And isn't that the most evil genius thing you've ever heard of? Now, this may sound like a really hard hate piece, but it's not. He's not a bad filmmaker. I mean, technically, all of his works are great. They look great. They sound great. So he's clearly good at making them. I think it's just the stories that need a bit of a rethink. And maybe some of these mistakes were accidental. Let's hope. And I found it interesting that as you move along in his career from Assassination Nation to Euphoria to The Idol, it's hard to ignore the parallels between the stories, but then seeing the flaws somehow become more prominent, leaving behind any of like the actual intelligent things he seemingly wanted to say. Seemingly being the keyword, because a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to his work is done by fans who want to fill in the blanks, fill in the gaps, because they want it to be good so bad that they're willing to put in the extra work that the writer didn't do in the first place, to try and justify and glorify and uphold as something so great. And he has done some pretty great things. Euphoria Season 1, if you can ignore the nudity and all the issues associated to how he portrays naked teenagers, even though they are played by actors of age, if you can ignore all of that, then sure, he has created some great storylines that have allowed actors to deliver some pretty terrific performances, while also exploring nuance in these stories, in these characters. Euphoria had time for him to properly develop the characters and work collaboratively with actors. And then came season 2, and the quality went because once you have the characters, you have to kind of keep having them. And if you're past a certain point that you had envisioned initially and you've never tried to see past that, then you're going to give us a shitty season, amping up all of those negative things, like, you know, stuff that is completely unnecessary. And I could go into why his work specifically is appealing to the worst possible generation to be watching it. But you know what? Today's not Euphoria Day. Today is Assassination Nation. And judging by the amount of people that watched this movie, you're going to need a recap of what actually happens, but don't worry, I'll keep it short and sweet. The movie has some good ideas, right? On a surface level, the movie is good. Kind of good. It's the way it gets to those ideas, or the way it tries to handle those ideas, that really fumbles the ball and makes this hard to defend. But anyway, the movie begins, and we're being told by Lily, our main character, about the night that her entire town of Salem lost its mind. And straight away, we're told it gets pretty graphic before we're shown a long list of trigger warnings, and I mean long. Buckle up. Bullying, blood, abuse, classism, death, drinking, drug use, sexual content, toxic masculinity, homophobia, transphobia, guns, nationalism, racism, kidnapping, murder, inattempted, the male gaze, rape, attempted, sexism, swearing, torture, violence, gore, weapons, fragile male egos. Yep. First of all, a lot of these sound kind of interchangeable and others outright unnecessary. Toxic masculinity, fragile male egos. Do we not know that one is a component of the other? Nationalism, racism. Is there a difference? It's almost like Sam wants to earn extra points with the cool kids because, like, look at what he's not afraid to talk about and expose. Like, he positions himself as an activist about to show us his progressive manifesto while exposing this plethora of evils plaguing our society. And it'll be impossible to do justice to all the topics. It's just surprising he did justice to none of them. Now, Lily introduces herself. She's 18. Guys, you can breathe. She's not a minor. Stay away from Euphoria. And she shows us her best friends, Em, Bex, and Sarah, and says she doesn't know if they'll live through the night. Okay. Lily and Bex are the only ones that get any character development whatsoever, by the way. Em and Sarah are truly there just so we can have more characters to add filling dialogue and more people to brutalize and use as mouthpieces for whatever grand statement Sam was trying to make. I don't know if I've said this, but a large part of why people were critical of Euphoria is because Sam portrays teenage girls in a hyper-sexualized manner. Yes, he uses actors of age, but the scenes feel exploitative, they're unnecessarily long and intense, and they feel like a director living out his fantasies in his work. At this point, that's like his thing. You know, if you watch The Idol and Euphoria, that's his thing. It's to make women super sexual and uncomfortable, and then act like he's on their side when he's not. So once Lily says, let's start at the beginning, it cuts to her boyfriend telling her that she could be a porn star while his fingers are in her mouth and she is in her underwear on the bed. Oh, and then the voiceover cuts and says, actually not here, because what I did that afternoon was really gross. Okay, straight away, Lily is edgy and is comfortable with sex, but did we have to do all of this in the first scene we see of her? But it gets worse, because after she pays visit to this little girl she used to babysit, whose parents are going to be very important, spoiler alert, she's sexting the dad. She goes to her friend's house and she has runny mascara in her eyes because, again, her boyfriend was just shoving his hand down her throat. And her friend's mom is giving a foot rub to a random guy and asks her, oh, have you been crying? And I kid you not, her response to the mother of her friend is, no, some boy just shoved his fingers down my throat. Not as sexy as it sounds. I know you're 18, but do you have to say this to your friend's mom? Like, she just asked if you were crying. There was no need for all of that. Like, why? We've already established that she's comfortable with her sexuality. Now we're just hammering down this point that's going to turn her into a one-dimensional character that lives and breathes to be sexually provocative. But if you don't yet understand his style of how comfortable we are with our sexuality, we're so open and we're so cool and edgy. The next scene is a conversation between these four girls about the guy that the mom was giving a foot rub to. And they must say the word rape like 5 times in 10 seconds. And the only person who's uncomfortable with the overuse of the word rape between teenage friends is Bex. It's just shock value, you know, it's seeing a bunch of girls like, yeah, he's very rapey. And they all talk about it like so nonchalant. This is something that has happened in Euphoria and The Idol. He gets these girls to talk about rapey men as if that's like hot.
Disgusting!
So Lily has a boyfriend. He doesn't go down on her. It's a point of contention in their relationship. It's something that she has shared with her friends, and they have alluded in front of him to knowing. And they argue a lot. He gets quite nasty when they argue. His go-to is calling her a slut and a whore. But Lily is also having a sort of an affair over text with a married man. You know the guy whose daughter she visited earlier? Well, she's sexting him. They haven't slept together. She was just groomed by him from the age of 16. So now they have a very intense sexual conversation over text. And they have this very weird, creepy dynamic, father-daughter. His contact is saved on her phone as Daddy, and they talk as if she has to be his good little girl. Sam was trying a smart one with this. Lily is already portrayed as this sexual liberation for all girl, feminist, radically against the patriarchy and the way it sexualizes women. But then she's also sexting a married man in a father-daughter dynamic with serious undertones of pedophilia. He's trying to tell us that we're all flawed. Even this main character that we're supposed to be rooting for, the most unlikable girl of the entire story, she's flawed like we are. So she can't be the hero that we need because no one can. We're all nuanced. And what does he do with that nuance? Nothing. He goes nowhere with any of it. All of these little seeds that he plants of problems and really disturbing shit, he just plants them and walks away. We never talk about the power balance between the two. We never talk about how she was underage when they first met and he basically groomed her. Oh no, we do. We do. We see a conversation of Lily talking to Bex about how she basically fell in love with this guy, and it was because he would drive her home after she babysat his child and then would ask her questions that no one has ever asked her, and she felt seen and felt warm in her heart. And then one day he put his hand on her thigh and that really gave her a little jolt of electricity. And even now she talks about it like it's this beautiful fairy tale, this beautiful romance. And we never go anywhere with it. We never establish the relationship itself wrong. Bex is like the only person that tries to point out the obvious. Lily, like, he's 40, you're 18, but when you guys met and started texting, you were underage. And she writes it off as like, yeah, but I like him. Great. Like, therapy, girl. And it just, I don't know, it makes very little sense for her to be so actively opposed to the system, so actively free for all, and then just goes and acts like someone's sexy daughter. But get it, we're all hypocrites and blah, blah, blah. It's like a privileged person trying to make sense of social issues without understanding them, so they have to create these contradicting characters. And then they just exist, and they do shit that no one would do because these people aren't real. Also, the way the camera constantly zooms in on Lily's body, this is what gets me, right? I find it interesting that he establishes straight away that she is 18. So in the back of our minds, we're like, okay, she's an adult woman. We can look at her like she's adult. But then she's also in school and she wears the same clothes as like younger girls. Like her wardrobe, a lot of the pieces I found very like childlike. We also know that the relationship started when she was underage. So it's like he's trying to bait us into seeing Lily as an adult woman. Because from here on out, he treats Lily as an adult. Everyone around her treats her as an adult. I think he wanted Lily to be slightly underage, but then that would have been a bit too bad. Because he doesn't actually condemn anything. And so he spends a lot of the shots zooming in on her breasts, mainly. He's criticizing the male gaze, right? By showing the male gaze and by doing it. Can someone please tell this man this is not how you do it? And then we get into Bex's storyline. Bex is trans, and she's been texting a guy that's part of the football team, and he's very interested in her, but doesn't want it to get out because he's ashamed. And I do want to commend Sam for always portraying trans women with trans actresses. We don't want to do another Danish Girl or Dallas Buyers Club and put a man in makeup and call it a woman. But I also feel like she's very one-dimensional because to this story, she serves solely as the purpose of being a trans woman. There's nothing more to her. I don't know anything about her other than she's trans. She's texting a guy who wants to keep it a secret because she's trans. And then everything that happens to her after is because of that solely. She is reduced completely to her gender identity. And like, I get that he wanted to make that a big part of the storyline to show the violence against women, but he could have given her like, I don't know, a little bit of depth, develop her a bit more. But as we'll see, he doesn't develop any of the characters. The most developed character is Lily, and even she's a disaster. And I think he uses her transness as a vehicle to show us violent acts on screen, but also to have this empowering scene at the end, which we'll get to in a second. And I don't know, to me, it just felt a bit exploitative. But hey, at least she has friends who accept her for who she is, so she's gotta be okay, right? Okay, so one night, as we see a bunch of teenagers in a montage of them drinking and doing drugs and being super edgy and badly behaved and sexual with each other, someone leaks all the private information of a notorious anti-LGBTQ plus mayor. And in that information that gets hacked and released to the public are pictures and videos of him masturbating while cross-dressing. Okay. The public outroar is obviously quick and vicious, and it leads to the mayor committing suicide in the middle of a press conference. And it's done so quickly that it felt almost inconsequential to the story. There's another leak that also feels like it doesn't really add anything to the story when you get to the end of the movie. But after this guy kills himself, the principal has his information leaked as well. And in his phone were pictures of his 6-year-old daughter having a bath. And because the daughter was naked in these pictures, people immediately labeled him a child molester and a danger to kids. And so the public calls for him to resign from his position, especially because his work involves him working very closely with children. However, he refuses to do so, despite public outrage, and then we never do anything with that ever again. The only thing we do with that is a conversation that Lily has with her parents. It gives her a chance to disagree with her mother, who believes that the principal is a child molester, whereas Lily says that no, people are just sexualizing the nudity of his daughter on his phone because they want to find something wrong and because they're perverts, because it's people that sexualize nudity for no reason that are the problem. And then she even points out to a picture that her mom has of her daughter at the age of 2, completely naked in the foyer. And she's like, do you think that's child pornography? And though she has a point, I wouldn't discard that quickly that the principal could actually be a predator. And then soon after, half of the town is hacked. And among those hacked are Nick, Lily's daddy, who sees all of the nude pictures that she sent him leaked, exposed to the public. And though her face isn't on them, it's not really hard to recognize her, especially with her necklaces and her birthmarks. This is where the sexism, slut-shaming, toxic masculinity really kicks in, but also the gaping plot holes that make a 10-inch dildo feel like an easy day at work. For some reason, out of all of the 17,000 people that were hacked, or something ridiculous like that, out of all these people that had all their private information leaked online, it's Lily, the anonymous woman that sent nudes of herself to a married man, that becomes pariah number 1 in this entire town. You mean to tell me that out of all the hacked people, the worst they could find is a woman sending nudes of herself to a married man? They're so obsessed with it that they even create Reddit groups discussing the identity of this woman because they just have to find her. They just have to kill her. I mean, even Lily says it in a voiceover. Like,
who sees a naked photo of a girl and their first thought is, yo, I gotta kill this bitch?
It makes no sense, but yeah, she becomes Salem's little whore. And then her boyfriend, who won't go down on her and likes to watch her cry, those weren't red flags in the first place, decided to go through the leaked pictures of this guy's phone for some reason. I don't know why these pictures went viral. Like, have y'all never seen nudes? Why would these nudes go viral? Sure, he's married. Surely you'd point out that he's married. His wife's probably going to leave him. Why would you bother trying to find the identity of this person? Like, are we really that I just can't get past that. I cannot get past this. But anyway, her boyfriend went through the fucking pictures and recognized his girlfriend. So he gets 2 of his friends to assault her, to pin her down, while he takes demeaning pictures of her so he can post her identity online in the Reddit groups full of the incels that want to kill her. This information somehow circles back to her parents, and when her mom confronts her, she turns into a slobbering, muttering, crying mess. She can't even get her words out. She's unable to speak. It's a very long, uncomfortable scene of her just there in her bed, trying to push out those tears. Girl, focus. And I was a bit surprised by how submissive she was, considering the heated debate that she had a few days ago about a child molester. But her mom just drags her by the hair and kicks her out of the house, and they effectively disown her. Just because she sent pictures to an older man. Like, it's not like they slept together or anything, mind you. She just sent provocative pictures of herself, which could have arguably been from someone else, but okay. I would have denied until I was dead. And then after she's kicked out, she gets chased down the street by this random guy that recognizes her from the pictures, and she smashes his face in with a shovel. Pretty sure breaks his entire frontal area of his face. And then we skip to a week later. People are now confronting other people. They're fighting. They're canceling each other in real life, basically, which involves a lot of violence, a lot of public shaming, a lot of humiliation. It's like Salem is going back to how it used to be in the 30s and 40s. Damn, Sam is just obsessed with portraying that type of violence for no reason. Like, at least diversify your victims. I'm sure there's men out there who are also getting victimized by these attacks, no? Are the only people worthy of punishing in these movies women and queers? Like, fucking hell. Now, the guy that Bex was sexting, his friends found out that they slept together, and the transphobia is rampant in that locker room. It's very crass, but long story short, these guys who a week ago seemed to be cordial with Bex, at least, they seemed to be, like, friendly. They were all at that party celebrating the downfall of the anti-gay mayor, and now a week later they want to literally lynch her because she slept with someone they know, with one of their friends. Surely it's not that radical that they go from hanging out to wanting to lynch her in a week. It didn't feel well developed, you know? It didn't feel like he was adding anything to the conversation. He was just using her transness to show brutality against her. Oh, but in the end, the women win. Great. At what cost, though? Of forgiving her... I'm getting ahead of myself. So after this week has passed, there's two main things that advance the narrative. One of them is this Bex storyline that there's a group of transphobes that basically want to lynch her. And if that wasn't bad enough, now Nick, the guy that Lily was texting, whose wife apparently left him, is leading an angry mob of what I can only assume is just a group of nationalists and Trump supporters, the red-blooded Americans, MAGA. They're now wanting to find out who hacked all of their personal information, and they're wearing these weird fucking masks that make no sense. I don't know what Sam was trying to do with this. Like, sure, they're hiding their identity. Why? Like, who fucking cares? They kidnapped this kid who was interrogated by the police. He was also a sort of a hacker, but it wasn't him that hacked. And to save himself, while he's getting literally waterboarded in this bathtub by this suburban father, he's getting tortured to death. So he tells them the day of the hack, there was a massive surge in data traffic, from Lily's IP address. And so it must be Lily, the person that exposed all of our dirty secrets, and therefore we must kill Lily. So now the whole mob wants to kill Lily, and by proxy, Em and Sarah. I don't know what Em and Sarah are doing here, other than, again, to get brutalized and say the odd, weird thing out of conversation.
It's the Casey Anthony trial. Oh my god! And we had just gotten TiVo.
And he does some really pretty cool technical things with this movie. There's a shot of the house invasion. There's a house invasion scene, very intense, and the shot he uses is very like Halloween inspired, but he also is quite expert with the use of like colors and flashing lights and the pacing. So it's not like his technical skills are lacking. They're not. He's good. He's good at making films. He's just not good at writing them. Bex is taken by the transphobes. Em and Sarah get kidnapped by the white nationalists. And Lily is taken in by Nick. Nick, the leader of the mob. She doesn't know he's the leader of the mob. And he takes her upstairs to his daughter's bedroom. And then he tries to seduce her and coerce her into admitting that she was the one who hacked everyone while pretending to take care of her. And then he forces himself on her. Again, on his daughter's bed. I'm pretty sure it's decorated like a princess's bed. She seduces him to gain the upper hand, and then she kills that And that was the best scene of the entire film. It's very gory, but she slits his throat and he bleeds all over her. Very hostile part 2. That was nice. Well done, Sam. Well done, finally. Okay, I'll let that one slide. So Lily rescues Em and Sarah by killing the deputy that wanted private info to stay private. And then they arm themselves to the teeth, and it's so convenient that they have these really beautiful, marketable red jackets to wear. And honestly, I don't even have a gripe with this. If he wants to make it visually stylish, go for it. I have no problem with that, as long as he fixes the story. So they arm themselves to the teeth, and the problem people had with the movie was that it depicts women donning weapons and shooting them and knowing how to shoot them. I'm like, ma'am, if you've seen this until now and your gripe with the movie, what irks you the most is that these women are shooting weapons, then you need a therapist, like right now. And they even show us how they were going to kill Bex, and you know what? I'm not even going to entertain the violence. Anyway, the girls get there and they start shooting and they start knocking them down one by one. And then after they kill everyone, the main guy, the worst one of them all, surrenders, apologizes in tears, and they just let him go. This is what I find funny, okay? Sam has no problem being edgy and pushing boundaries, even the ones he should never even approach in the first place, just for pure shock value. But he hesitates when it comes to killing the guy who literally coerced all of his friends to murder someone. Why? Why? Are you afraid to portray a trans woman as a killer? Because you seem to have no problem fetishizing them to serve up a non-storyline like in Euphoria. Also, Bex pretty much shot a bunch of them already. So, like, what is this moral high ground bullshit that he's trying to us? Is he, after an hour and a half of pure what the is he doing, is he really going to take the moral high ground on this very specific scene? For what? Like, what was the point? What were you trying to say? We're better than them? Like, what? No, I'm not better than anyone. I'll shoot him. Fucking forgive who? And then the movie ends with a video that Lily posts online of herself, of a sort of a manifesto, like a call for revolution, a call for arms. And this is the one that is so ambiguous, like, what is he exactly saying? Because she's calling on people to destroy the system they've built because it's not working. Like, you built the system, don't blame us, blame yourself. If it's not working, stop pretending and abolish it. Are you telling men to stop pretending? Stop pretending like you're not killing us. Stop pretending like you're not raping us. Stop pretending like you're not kidnapping us. Just stop pretending like you're not enacting violence against us and just do it unapologetically. So what is Sam really trying to tell us? Because that's what it could be interpreted as, but it's played out as if it's like the feminist uprising, women against the system. I'm just wondering why his big statement in the first film he directs is a feminist uprising, and this is it. Mind you, all of this is told as characters have their little moments of expository dialogue where they basically say whatever Sam wants to say about the state of things, you know, whatever he's trying to criticize or call out, and they're mostly just word vomit, like the movie is yelling at you, this is what he meant in this exact specific scene. Like, there's no room for interpretation, but also it doesn't make any sense. It's like he went online and he clipped a bunch of words and he clipped them together to sound edgy and cool and like progressive yet transgressive. And the fact they add no value to the story whatsoever is what baffles me. Like, for example, at one point in the movie, Lily's called to the principal's office because when asked to draw from life, she drew explicit drawings of naked women in pornographic poses. And the principal says that they are quite extreme, and you know, because this is high school, that is not something that she could hand in as a piece of work. Because working by logic, most people in high school are minors. And Lily goes on this monologue about how there's thousands of selfies online and how it's not about the selfies and it's about the work we put into them, into getting the right lighting, the right shadows, the right angle, and how he wouldn't understand because he's a man. And then talks about the mind of trying to get the selfie right, you know, alluding to this toxic digital culture where we pressure ourselves into presenting a certain image and spend so much time curating it, especially if you're a woman. And that's what's extreme, not these drawings of women naked in pornographic poses. But she says this in a very like cool kid way, you know, like talking about the nipple is crooked or maybe the labia is too big, but if you thrust your pelvis a little bit, you get that right ankle that really, and she's talking to the principal about this, and I'm just like, Sam, what do you mean? What are you saying? Are you saying that real life is people being obsessed with their image online? Are you saying that women are more scrutinized online than men are? Are you saying that we as a society have pressured ourselves into looking a certain way that we can't really uphold, and we obsess over that, and that is extreme? Is that what you're saying? Because if it is, yes, been there, done that. What is... Wait, this is from 2018. Oh, still, off. But even if you want to keep the message, sure. Did you really think the best way to convey this was to have a high school student tell her principal all of this? To me, it sounds like Sam might have met someone in the past that drew these drawings and that told him about the transgressive nature of her work and equated that to imagining the work that goes into, I don't know, creating the right selfie because of this pressure that we're under to present an image, blah, blah, blah. And he heard someone say that, and then he remembered half the details, put together some sort of a story, and then used this teenager as, again, a mouthpiece to talk about this riveting experience he had in the past. Is that what's going on? How did he work this monologue into a high school setting like this? And then when Lily turns into a liberal, I nearly fell off my chair. Because when the mayor, takes his own life, tragic, a person died. This was a person that had consistently been pushing for legislation that would essentially outlaw Bex and people like Bex out of existence, right? Because that's what the anti-trans agenda ultimately wants. They want to erase trans people. They don't want to protect women's sports. They don't want to protect the children. That's all a ploy to get people who weren't that interested in those topics in the first place to join their cause against trans people. So when someone that pushes for that type of legislation that literally wants you dead, when someone like that is exposed as a hypocrite and takes their own life, it is no trans person's job to feel empathy for the person that takes their life. I'm not saying celebrate the death. I'm not saying throw fireworks, though sometimes celebrating is good for the heart. Because I'm sure that his life may have been tragic and he may have felt insecure, blah, blah, blah. But, don't ask trans people to grieve his death. So when Lily starts implying that Bex could feel some empathy with the man even though they disagreed, what? She says you can disagree with him and still feel empathy. Disagree? What is this, Sam? This was a conversation that felt so out of place in this context because she is friends with this trans woman and she's basically guilting her into feeling empathy for a man that would have wanted to see her dead. So Lily coming out as a liberal in the middle of the movie, aligning herself with the conservatives because it's easier to not cause confrontation and to not cause waves because they're always compromising. The overarching message, I guess, of the movie is that cancel culture isn't always good and mob mentality is bad and no one is totally good or totally bad. We're all flawed. We're all evil. Therefore, we're all subject to judgment. But what does it all mean, Sam? And that, my friends, was his best work because Euphoria and The Idol took a dive. Ignoring Euphoria and The Idol, and from watching this, I would have said that he was maybe experimenting a little bit with themes and seeing what worked best, what didn't, and then he started honing in on his craft, and boy oh boy did he take the wrong paths. But you know what? Let's talk about his writing abilities at a later date when we discuss Euphoria Season 2. We've covered a lot of toxic stuff, but I feel like there's an infinity pool of toxicity in his work. Thank you so much for tuning in all the way to here. If you like this video, feel free to leave it a like down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click that bell notification so you never miss a future upload from me. Also, follow me on my socials. I'm Eric Silver C on Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's Eric Silver C. Do not search for Stutterbox. I am not Stutterbox on Instagram. That page is not used. It's there just to Eric Silver C. Realizing that the third picture is just me naked. My God. And with all that said, until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. And don't go watch Assassination Nation. Don't fill his pockets anymore. Bye, guys.